Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 97 of the Whitey and Will Sports Show. Today is Sunday, January 7th, 2024, and we got a guest. And we've got a guest that became a very timely guest this week because of a basketball performance that she had against Shelbyville earlier in the week. But somebody that Mike and I have been talking about trying to get on here since before all that, because if you've watched us, if you listen to what we say, one of the big things that we harp on is that we like kids who don't try to specialize in high school, that they try to do everything that they can. And nobody exemplifies that more than Stacie Vonderheide, who is our guest. Stacie, thank you very much for joining us, first of all. And you are
Yeah,
a
thanks for having me.
Yep. She's a senior at St. Anthony High School. Her she told us before we started recording her internet probably not quite as quick as ours. So we'll give her Mike, when we ask a question, we'll give her a second to hear it and give us the answer. But Stacie scored 52 points against Shelbyville earlier this week, and that is a St. Anthony record. Nobody has scored that many points in a game before. And first of all, congratulations on that. That's kind of a product of you guys don't have a really deep team this year. So in games like that, you get to keep playing, and that kind of allowed you to continue to score. And when I heard the recount of the game, it was just consistent quarter to quarter, but also you're averaging 25 points a game this season. So you've just sort of been that rock for the team all season long, haven't you?
Yeah, I've definitely learned from the past, seniors in the past years, like Lucy. She was a great leader for the team, and also Riley Guy. So
Yeah.
just trying to live up to their standards.
But the thing is that you don't, I mean, basketball is just one of the things you do. You have really, girls sports at St. Anthony over the last few years, really, it's been quite a stretch. You've been on in a softball program that has been to two state tournaments, and you were a big part of the Class 2A third place team last year. You were a starting outfielder for that team, a good hitter for that team. Everybody was a good hitter on that team. But then you were part of the volleyball team that made it to state and got third place this year. You were on the cross country team that made it to state, and you got to run at the state meet. So you have gotten to do all sorts of cool stuff. And I just wonder, like, at this point, does anything make you nervous? Because it just seems like you've been on the big stage in so many different ways. Like everything just has to be kind of been there, done that at this point.
Yeah, I've definitely changed since freshman year. I would get really nervous before games, but yeah, now like you said, I've just been kind of used to it now. So
And you're not just on the cross,
Whitey,
but
Whitey,
also, yeah.
I'm guessing this is probably the most nerve-wracking thing she's done this year in all of her accolades. Having to spend time with an elderly gentleman and a former sports writing hack on the internet has got to rank up there as tough.
Well, yeah, she's wondering what are these two weirdos going to ask me, but listen, we're impressed with what you do because there's a couple of things about you. I mean, first of all, you're good at all these things, right? Like at this point, it's not like you're just on these teams. I mean, you're a major contributor to everything you do, and you're also track and field, a little disappointed in you that you haven't that you don't have any state medals yet in track and field, but you got one more chance for that. But just kidding, of course. But also, if, you've worked your way up because the reason that some kids, I think, decide to focus on one sport or the other is because maybe freshman, sophomore year, they don't get a lot of varsity time. They kind of have to kind of have to pay their dues and they don't want to wait until they're a junior and senior. I think for you, you kind of had to wait until you were a junior and a senior in some of these sports to really get your chance for a lot of time, but now you're making the most of it.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely think the hard work pays off. You know, when you get in the gym, you just work.
Stacie, when you were a sophomore, you guys were at I believe, the Cumberland Regional in basketball or a sectional, I forget. I did the game on the radio. And you came in primarily for
Hmm.
defensive purposes, and you created a lot of havoc. And I said on the radio at that time, I said, I forget who you beat that night. I mean, because again, I'm old and forgetful. But you really sparked the late flow of that game because you got a couple steals back to back and did some things, and I was impressed. So I've kind of watched you since then on how you've developed because you showed me a lot that night, and I have been pleasantly surprised because you have developed offensively as much as you have played defensively.
Yeah, I remember that game too, and coming in, and knowing that I didn't get a lot of time, and so I just had like to make the most of it. And so that was my job, to just go on the floor, get rebounds, get steals.
You were just this little scrawny redhead kid that was a pain in the butt, to be honest. And you reminded me of another scrawny redheaded kid as a freshman I saw do that as Bart Willenberg. Now you have no idea who that is, but I guarantee you your dad knows who that is.
Is that
That'd be
Riley
Riley's
Willenberg's dad?
dad. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He was kind of a little scrawny redhead, not much, but boy, he could guard people, and he became a heck of a player. Now, one thing Dustin forgot to mention in your accolades of all the things you've done this year, you were also in the play. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, were you, and again, this is my ignorance, were you on stage or were you behind the scenes?
This year I was on stage.
Okay. So you were on stage this year because that all happened right around the time of state cross country and state volleyball, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So when did you sleep?
In the car.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's good. Because that's impressive because you know what? Um, being an athlete and doing things, oh, that's easy. When you got to get up there, and at some point, you were singing on the stage because I know it was a musical. So again,
Hmm.
I'm impressed by that. That's really something. I'm glad to see that. And the other thing I've noticed because I've seen you a couple times at the Workman Complex. One time when I harassed you and made you come on our show, but the other time I saw you earlier in the preseason. And when you're working on your game, you're not just, I call it shooting and scratching. You don't hit a shot and kind of scratch your behind and dribble over here and shoot and talk to somebody. You're working. And that's so impressive because you don't see that much, let's say today, you may see that in the driveway or something, but you're out there with a lot of people around. There was a lot of distractions and you were working. And I found that to be very impressive.
Thank you. Yeah. I just try and make the most of my time and try and get a good workout in.
Okay.
And you were, and I gave her some tips, Whitey. I haven't seen her play yet since then to see if she's incorporated any of that in her game.
Well,
But we'll see.
but that does raise a question to me. So, I mean, obviously a highly motivated individual. What's in the back of your mind when you're putting in this work? Like who are you emulating? Who are you trying to be like? Who are you thinking about when or are you, when you're doing all this extra work on the side, knowing that like you have to work your tail off to get to where you are right now?
Yeah, I'm just trying to improve upon myself and just know that I have a role to play on the team. And I'm just trying to fill that role through all the work that I put in.
Yeah. And you've been fortunate, I mean, just in all these sports really, that there's been a lot of talented kids around you too. I mean, whether it's softball, whether it's volleyball, whether it's the basketball court now, there's always been a couple of, not more than a couple sometimes, but a lot of other kids that are really solid and really talented too. So that kind of allows you to just focus on what your role is and make sure that you're doing that to the best of your ability. You don't ever have to be like the guy that's doing everything. I mean, is that a fair assessment?
Yeah.
I mean, I
So
look
this, oh, go ahead, Whitey.
no, well, I mean, I just look at the basketball team now, like, you got Nancy over there scoring 20 some points a game too. And so you don't have to go into that game knowing I got to score my 25. If I don't score my 25, we're not going to win. And that would be seems like that would be a lot more pressure. That would make it more difficult, I think, to just go out there and do what you need to do, right?
Hmm. Yeah, it's definitely nice to have Nancy on the court and just know whenever I'm having a bad night that she's gonna be right there to step her game up, help the team out as well.
Absolutely. Okay, go ahead, Mike.
All right, Stacie, I got a question. I know you've got a big NTC tournament coming up here in two weeks, I believe. Dropped a tough game to Altamont without Nancy on the floor. She was injured at the time. I think she was out. I know that. Have you guys kind of, not coming from coach, just you ladies, said we need to get back to that game and make amends?
Yeah, we definitely have a chip on our shoulder now because of that.
And I like that. And that's good when it's coming from the team, where Coach Rios doesn't have to be the person creating the focus, that you guys kind of have that awareness and you say, okay, this is one we want to get back, because you know, there's pretty talented individuals. If you guys can get to that game, that'd be a heck of a ball
Hmm. Yeah.
It's a good conference though. I mean, like in that would be a fun matchup, but obviously like and it's been this way for the last 2 or 3 years. I mean, there's been years in the past where the NTC girls conference has kind of been you sort of knew who was going to make it to the championship game, but for the last 2 or 3 years, really, you've always got 4 or 5 teams in that league that, like, if you're not taking care of your business, they can jump up and bite you. And I think that that added challenge helps you to go into every one of those games, understanding, right? Like we have got to be 100% or this isn't going to work out for us. And I think I mean, it's has to have been a fun league to have been a part of, throughout your high school career as you get into your senior season.
Yeah, no, there's definitely been a couple upsets in the last couple of years in the tournament. And anyone can lose and anyone can win on any given day. So it's just best that you go out there and try your hardest.
Yep. I forgot when Mike was talking about the play. What was the play and what was the part? That was something I meant to ask. What did you do?
So the musical was White Christmas and I was Rita. She was kind of like a showgirl.
Okay. And you
game.
did.
Right up your alley, Stacie. I mean, that was a typecast there.
I mean, are you a singer generally? Did you get to sing by yourself or was it in a group? And was that somehow more did that tug on the nerves maybe more than, like, I don't know, staying at the free throw line in the fourth quarter of a close game, something like that?
Yeah, definitely. I'm not much of a singer and luckily it was with a bunch of people and not alone.
That's all right. You did it. That's the most important thing. And
Yeah, I mean,
you did a good job.
that's what I always, yeah, that's
Thank
what
you.
I always tell my kids, like, that getting up there in front of people, most people respect that regardless of how you perform because they couldn't even make themselves do it. And then, I mean, you know, your Twitter bio, I took a look at that. You've got your GPA in there. You're obviously a good student too. So I really do. I just wonder, like, I mean, do you have any other hobbies, or is it just basically playing sports and like studying? It seems like there could not possibly be time for anything else.
Yeah, usually it's mostly just sports, studying. I do like to get some free time in though at school whenever, during that study hall period and just hanging out with my friends.
Yeah. Um, I mean, at any point in high school, has there ever been the thought in the back of your head, maybe there's one of these 5 sports that I'm doing that maybe I should just give myself a little more free time, or have you always just kind of been like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna see it through, and I'm gonna participate in all these things?
Yeah, I've mostly just said I'm going to participate in all these things because I think that some of the skills in some sports I play can translate into other sports as
Yeah.
well.
I mean, give me a specific on that. Like, tell me something more specific that you think, like, from one sport to the other translates, that helps you out. I mean, you obviously have an idea of what you mean when you say that. Is there something that jumps out in your head, you know?
Well, originally, reason why I joined cross country way back was because conditioning for basketball. And I
Uh-huh.
think that really helped me out a lot. And also, setting for volleyball, I've noticed that that's helped me out with my basketball dribbling as well.
Right, good hands, right? I mean, it's kind of about touch, so that makes sense.
That's good. And Stacie, moving on next year, what do you want to study? Because obviously, if you're, Whitey and we would not have put our GPAs on a Twitter handle. I wouldn't do that. Maybe combined with somebody, I might. So, what's your plans? What do you want to study?
I want to study education and hopefully become a teacher.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm watching 2 teachers right now dance in my kitchen when you said that as they prepare a meal because and I was a teacher at one point too. Some may argue, but that's awesome. I mean, are you talking elementary or high school?
Probably high school or even like
Okay.
junior high.
Stay away from those junior high kids. They're goofy. I'm telling you right now. That's the group you don't want to get involved with. High school's okay. Elementary, junior high kids. Yeah, that's a struggle. That's a struggle. So you've got one of the best schools for education just north of you there at Eastern. I'm just, Whitey's been there. I got a couple degrees from there. It's quite a school, especially for teaching. So just planting the seed for my alma mater right there.
She's
All
probably
right.
she maybe she's already decided, maybe she's
Oh, she
already got
may. Now,
plans, but
has anybody talked to you about any schools reaching out to you about, playing for them in one of the, multiple sports you participate in?
Yeah, I've had a couple reach out to me for basketball and for track and cross country.
If you could do one, would you pick basketball?
say that again, Mike. You got a
What was
little,
that?
Oh,
yeah, you
I'm
got a
sorry.
little
If you had the choice to continue at the next level, would it be basketball over the others?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, all right. That's good. I think that'd be a good choice, and I am glad to hear you want to be a teacher because, like I said, just by seeing how hard you work, I think you'd do a good job because teaching's not easy. You get little kids like Dustin and I in your classroom, and then it's all downhill from there.
I was pretty well behaved, Mike. I don't know what you're talking about. So obviously we're in the middle of basketball season. Mike mentioned that the NTC tournament, it's the week after this coming week, so the finals would be like basically 2 weeks from today. But as a team, you've got other goals besides that. I mean, you've been to sectionals the last couple of years, run into obviously some really good competition. Um, but you feel like, I mean, you have to feel like, you've got another special group this year, and the goals have to be high once postseason rolls around, right?
Hmm. Yeah, we definitely have a well-balanced team, and everyone steps up to contribute. And really, we just want to make school history.
Obviously a good
And
goal, and you've already you've already been able to do some of that, individually. But my understanding is that that's really, not how you're wired. You're not thinking about what kind of records can I break. You're thinking about how to help the team win. Coach Rios tells me as much. And you know a sectional would be school history, right? So that's the goal then, is trying to win that sectional. But you're going to run into some awfully good competition, and so the goal between now and then is to keep improving. What do you think that you guys can continue to improve upon as the season winds down?
I definitely think our rotations on the defensive end and just like trying to like hold them. Our goal is to always try and hold the team under 40 points. So I definitely think we can improve on the defensive end.
Yeah. And then, and I was kind of questioning you about this before we started recording, but then like once basketball ends, and then you track kids will already have been doing some of their preseason work, and softball will obviously get underway. Is there ever any downtime between seasons where you just take a week and don't do anything, or are you one of those kids that just goes right on to the next thing?
I usually go running into the next thing, running through the halls and track and hitting balls for softball.
Yeah. And you run, I was looking at what you ran at sectionals last year, in track and field, and those are some of the tougher races too, because you're a miler. You ran the 4x8, you ran the 4x4, and those are some of the ones where, like, once you finish, like, you're hurting a little bit. Those are the kind that you got to be in pretty good shape to do. I've got a lot of respect. Anyone who runs the 800 these days, like, it's so taxing. Does that take more out of you than anything else you do as an athlete?
Honestly, it does take a lot out of you. I think basketball also helps with that, like staying in conditioning and stuff like that. It's
Yeah.
it's a hard race though.
Yeah, I mean, to do all, I mean, okay, so yeah, last year at sectionals, mile, 4x8, 4x4, and high jump. I mean, I don't know what order those came in, but it seems like you wouldn't have any legs left by the time it's
four
all.
by four by four is the last race of the day, Whitey. That's what Jessica ran. I know where that one falls.
Okay. All right.
Hey, and Stacy, your 4x8 relay may pick up a new runner this year to help you.
Oh yeah. Isabel Keller, she's insane. I'm so glad that she's on our team and I don't have to run against her.
You should have got her to come out for basketball. I could imagine she could be a pesky little guard running around because she'd never get tired.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question, Stacy. You guys have a family farm, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. Rumor has it the only
Oh, here
reason
we
you
go.
do 7 sports and plays is so you don't have to do chores. Is that true?
That may be a little true, yeah.
See, Whitey, I told you that was the reason. We all got to have reasons.
I feel like the chores around the farm might be beneficial to the athletics too, though, right? I mean, come on, there's probably some of that work around the house that might help you out on the field somewhere.
Oh yeah. Carrying buckets, milking the cows. It all
So,
equals out.
Stacy, extra sprints at the end of practice or having to carry buckets around on the lot. when it's about -7 degrees out and snowing? Which is more fun?
Definitely running sprints.
All right, I understand.
What else you got, Mike?
I mean, I'm just, again, and I don't want to say so many good things to embarrass Stacie, but it's just the fact that everything you've been involved in, you've exceeded and excelled at. And, like I said, just the attitude, because I mean, you play the right way. I mean, you play them all the right way. I've done a couple basketball games. I've seen you play on the radio. I've seen you play softball on the radio. I know when Whitey and I were talking about having you on, and then you gave us, you're one of 8 fans who gave us a shout out from our show. So we said, okay, now we gotta have her on. But I'm just so impressed with how well rounded you are and able to do everything. Plus, be so good at school, and like I said, and you're not been shy talking with a couple like us. So that's another feather in your cap.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I do want to know, because like last year in basketball, you were a great contributor, averaging 12 and a half points a game, but I mean, you scored more than 400 points last year. You've already exceeded your total from last year now. Uh, did you think when this season began that you'd be talking after the turn of the year and you'd be at 25 a game and doing all the other things you do? Was it did you see it going that way, or is this have the results been maybe even a little better than you could have imagined?
Yeah, I think I've definitely surprised myself this year with what I've been doing to help the team out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's you guys are fun to watch. I have said this. I've kind of been beating this drum this year that this is, and like I said, at St. Anthony, just in general, the girls' sports, there it's kind of a renaissance period, right? Like everything is just going so well that people have to understand how special this group of athletes that has come through over the last 3 or 4 years is, and they need to appreciate what you're doing. And so I just want to take the time to say that again. If people can get out there to watch you play, they need to do it while they still have the chance. And also congratulations on making all tournament at the Coles County Holiday Tournament recently. I watched you guys play Muhammad online, and that's a Muhammad team that's not quite where it was last year, but still very athletic, and you guys just dominated them. And a lot of that was Stacie Vonderheide out there creating turnovers and getting layups, and a well-deserved honor for you to make that all tournament team. Congratulations on everything you've done so far, but we're really looking forward to seeing what you do with the rest of your season.
Thank you. Yeah, couldn't have done without my team. They're a big part of it.
Yep, absolutely. So with that, Mike, if you don't have anything else,
I want to wish Stacie good luck. You've been to a lot of state tournaments. First team to go in volleyball. You might as well, do it again and create another first. Obviously be the first to get that sectional, but I mean, that'd be awesome. And I wish you the best of luck the rest of the year.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Stacie, I think we can safely let you go. So Mike and I are gonna do a little more talking, but thanks again for your time. We'll let you bail out on the call. Hopefully this wasn't too painful, but hey, if it wasn't, tell your friends. You never know when we might reach out to another St. Anthony kid to be on the show. So put in a good word for us, would you?
All right, will do. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Thanks, Stacie. See ya.
All right, that's Stacie Vonderheide, senior at St. Anthony High School. Nice enough to join us. And again, a true five sport athlete. And again, it's not like she just does any of those, right? Like
Right. It's not like she just says, "Hey, look, I got another letter." No, she
it's a
and a
rare
good and a
breed.
good kid. She did
Rare
a good
breed,
job.
a rare breed in high school sports these days. And at small schools, you need kids like that. You really
Mhm.
do. They can't afford to have people saying, well, basketball's not my sport, or, baseball's not my sport. Like, if you're an athlete, you can contribute, and it doesn't have to be a starring role. Like I said to her, she wasn't a star on the varsity teams during her underclass years. And
Right.
some kids would just say, okay, well, forget it. And she didn't. She put in the work. She got herself on the varsity court as a junior and senior, or on the varsity playing field as a junior and senior. And now the experience is shining through. And so we were lucky to
Oh,
have
yeah.
her on. And she's been a prolific scorer the last couple of years. She's going to, by the time it's all said and done, have her name pretty high up on those St. Anthony scoring books. And
Yeah.
that's
Oh, I
that's
think so. I think she's got more milestones to achieve.
Yep.
I'm excited she wants to be a teacher. I'd give her a recommendation. I know that probably doesn't make anyone jump. Hey, Wilson's giving her a recommendation. No, but just from like I said, when you see people working on their own game in a place where they don't have to be working hard, and 80% of the kids, 90% of the kids you see in that setting are more rather get in a game with people or do something. She was busting her tail, and that impressed me the most. How hard she worked when she wasn't. No one's watching. Oh, how hard are you? That was really good.
And that
So,
so that kind of dovetails into, we can start talking about this past week in basketball.
I have a big announcement, Whitey. We can kick that off right now.
Do it.
I talked to a little bird this afternoon.
Okay.
The Nesto 1A basketball rankings will have a new number one team when they hit the press tomorrow morning.
Is that right?
The St. Anthony Bulldogs will now be ranked number one in the state of Illinois for
Did
1A on Nesto's poll.
Is that right?
Yeah, I don't think he's got it out yet, but I was given permission to break that news to our 8 listeners. So I thought that would be, we may get to 9.
So
We'll have to
Tuscola
see.
got beat by Shelbyville.
Tuscola got beat by Shelbyville.
And so
Tuscola's got a tough week coming up.
yeah, they sure do. They got
They
Tolono
go to Tolono Tuesday.
Tuesday, and then they come to
That game may
Teton
get
Saturday.
snowed out. They're up there more where they may get some snow than down here. And then Saturday, how would you like to be that opponent Saturday to come in when Teutopolis is honoring the 100th year of their boys basketball program?
Yeah.
Head coaches are going to be back. Hey, even assistant coaches got invited back. So,
Is that right? Hey,
players.
I hear there's going to be a good media presence there too. So
Are you guys doing the game on the radio?
yeah, we managed to pick that one up.
Well, and you know what? I kudos to you and Matt and whoever helped, and Greg, I'm assuming behind the scenes, who helped do that, because that's a big thing.
Yeah,
It
I mean,
really is.
just the game itself,
Oh
Tuscola,
yeah,
T-Town
yeah.
is a
And
good
T-Town's
draw.
kind of righted the ship a little. When I say righted the ship, they're playing well. I mean, they went 2-2 at Christmas, but you know, they played tough tournament there. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
as usual, the stars are starting to align for this part of the state. And I think we'll see some good things happen.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of stars aligning, I mean, we were just talking to an NTC girls player, and it was a big week for St. Anthony in that they got a couple of wins. I mean, they thumped Shelbyville, um, scored 93 points in that game. I believe that was a record also, in addition
Yeah.
to Stacie's 52. And then they beat Flora yesterday. So they got a couple of wins. They beat Flora by 25 points. I don't want to undersell it. And they're standing at 13-6 overall right now. But Altamont's girls also had a really nice week.
I saw that.
I mean, they had a couple of games that they should, they did and should have won earlier in the week. They beat Oblong, Palestine, Hudsonville, and South Central Tuesday, Thursday. But then yesterday they went to the Breeze Central shootout and faced a Christopher team that, of course, features Amaya Hargroves, the Nebraska commit. She's a senior. Grace Nelson, obviously, a senior going to Illinois State. So you got a lot of star power in that game. And Altamont picked up a 53-42 win. I sat down and watched that whole thing online, and Altamont was down 9 points in the first quarter.
Okay.
They got off to a pretty slow start, but at the end of the day, Grace Nelson puts 30 points on the board. And not just that, but plays fantastic defense too. Um, and kind of a signature moment in that game. They had just Altamont just hit a couple of free throws to make it an 8-point game with, I don't know, 30, 40 seconds left. Hargroves brings the ball up the floor. Grace picks her pocket, then beats her down the floor and beats her with a reverse layup. Just a thing of beauty.
Yeah.
And makes it a 10-point game and basically seals it. And you see Craig Carr on the sideline, the fist goes up in the air. He knows that that's the game. He knows that that's the player of the game for Grace, because at those shootouts they'll pick a player of the
Yeah,
game.
sure.
She obviously got it. But I just felt like that was a big moment for them. I mean, they've obviously won like 14 games in a row now, I think it is. But that's a matchup that was talked about a lot, and
Yeah.
for her to put her stamp on it like that, that's one that she'll remember forever, I have to think. And so
Well, for starters, I hope Coach Carr didn't strain his rotator cuff when he did that. He is getting up there in years as well. But that's good, and and we kind of joked about the St. Anthony girls looking forward to possibly getting a shot to have a rematch with Altamont. But you know what? If the stars align and that game happens, Altamont's great. Those kids aren't going to back down.
Well,
They're going to be ready. I'm sure they're looking for that opportunity as well. So that, like I said, that's the beauty of when you have quality boys and girls teams in our area, when you get a chance when they go against each other in some big games, and usually it lives up to its hype for the most part.
And Altamont's supporting cast is as good as it's ever been. I mean, Grace Nelson has been a star for 4 years, but the rest of the team improved tremendously in the off season. You can see the results of the work they've done. The Lurkins girl, particularly Kaylee Lurkins, she comes off the bench for them, but I saw her against South Central. We had that one on the radio. And then again, watched that game yesterday. She made some big buckets and big plays down the stretch in that win over Christopher. And so, lots of credit to all those kids for doing what they need to do. And again, understanding they're not going to be the one to put 25 or 30 points on the board, but if they all do their jobs and on any given night, one of them could still pile up 10 or 12 or 14, like they're going to get to 16-2 like they are now. They're going to be 6-0 in the national trail, and they're going to have a chance. They're going to have the ability to make a run once February gets here and once the postseason begins. And now there's still hurdles, I mean, listen, I think, Altamont's got Brownstown St. Elmo Thursday. That's going to be a big game. St. Anthony has to play Neoga this week, which could potentially be a pretty good game, I think. There are still big games left to play in that conference, but Altamont has certainly done its work up to this point to get to where they need to be. So
and shout out to Coach Carr. He's out of that Dave Bartlett, Doug Mimoser influence, which I mean maybe he's not good, but those are two big influencers on him.
Well, and also I think my understanding is that his biggest concern has actually been about defense with this team, like improving them defensively.
Right.
And I think you see some of that too. They also had to make an interesting adjustment. South Central played a triangle and 2 on Grace Nelson Thursday night, but they put the 2 on her, and they weren't just
they double teamed her. Yeah.
And they I'm talking face guarded, like they weren't even looking at the basketball. They were, and And in the half court, it worked okay. The problem for Altamont or for South Central was that Altamont created so many turnovers that she still scored her 30 points just on runouts, steals,
Yeah.
runouts, hit a couple of 3-pointers. She scored 30 points on, I believe, 13 of 14 shooting, with a couple of free throws in there. So just,
That's not bad.
yeah, that'll play. Also, I had, if we'll just stay in the NTC for a moment, because I had an interesting game Friday night between Altamont and Diederik. Now, first of all, at Diederik, they had it was a cancer awareness night. There are a couple of families in that town that have been, they've been fighting the fight, and they did a tremendous job with the whole night. They had a lot of fundraisers attached to the game, and at the end of the game, presented both families with checks in excess of, I think I saw
Yeah, I
where
thought I heard Greg say around $3,500.
35
Or
each.
Matt,
Yeah.
one of them.
Yeah. So yeah, that's amazing. First of all, that's no matter how the game goes, that's the kind of thing, and that's just the kind of community that Diederik seems to be, like the kind that rallies around its own, and so hats off to them for doing that. But then it was a good ball game too. 42-40 was the score. Altamont wins it. Altamont led by 9 points on like a handful of occasions, but just couldn't quite put the turnover bug away enough to pull away. They'd get up by 9, and then they'd have a couple of miscues, and they were without starter Dylan Elam, leading scorer Dylan Elam, and so they do have that. They did have that working against them, but Diederik was, Caleb Gephardt is their leading scorer. He apparently had a banged up shooting hand, which he was still playing, and he still scored like 10 points, but I think obviously affecting him a little bit, or maybe a lot, just a little bit as far as what I could see. But Diederik made a fantastic comeback in the fourth quarter. Even got ahead by 3 at one point, I think it was. But Altamont hangs on, and there was just a sequence at the end of the game, just and it's just one of those things that can happen, and you'll go over it, I think, in your head as a fan and as a player and as a coach, for a long time afterwards. But with about 9 seconds left, Diederik's going to inbound the ball coming out of a timeout. They're down by 2, and they get an open wing 3 and miss it. But Gephardt tracks down, or no, it wasn't Gephardt, it was Westendorf, tracks down a loose ball rebound as he's going back out toward the arc. Sets himself and puts up a 3-pointer and makes it. But as he's making it, his coach is getting a timeout. Okay. And he's granted the timeout. And so the shot doesn't count. And with like less than a full second, they have to draw up an inbounds play to get him a shot. And they do get him a shot, but it doesn't go down. And so for a split second, everybody in the crowd thought that Diederik had just won the game. And it was so loud there, you could barely hear the whistles. I know we couldn't hear the whistles through our headsets, but it's just one of those things. I compared it on the radio to like when a coach in a football game calls a timeout to ice the kicker, and then the kicker goes ahead and kicks it anyway, and he misses, and then they come out of the timeout and he makes it. Now, who's to say if it was the right or wrong call? It's just how it went, but it's gut wrenching, right? It's just gut wrenching.
Well, and I think you were doing the game on the radio. I think it was in the fourth quarter of the Town Dixon game. I think same thing happened. Kind of getting fuzzy, ball getting kicked around places, and Chet called the timeout. And at the same time, maybe Alex Kramer was burying the 3. So I've had that happen to me as a coach. It happens. I mean, you don't see something you don't like, or you're trying to save a possession and you call a timeout, and then that goes in. They're like, oh, what a stupid person that is. Well, those things happen. If the coach knew the shot they were going to end up with a good look and it was going to go, he wouldn't take that timeout. But
yeah, no, I mean,
those things happen.
Again, it was just, I mean, just worth talking about, really. Just really to get you to say what you just said, for people to kind of understand that, how that all goes down. But, St. Anthony, St. Anthony didn't have any conference games this week. They remain undefeated in conference play. Altamont gets that win, so they're 2-0. They haven't played very many conference games yet,
right?
Really, very many games. Period. they're 4 games behind everybody else in their overall game schedule just because of the way they
Well,
set
they don't play at Thanksgiving.
yeah. But that drops Diedrich to its second conference loss, and really just kind of looking at things that it may be too many for them to overcome as far as trying to win the regular season. Now it's
Well, and also
happening.
they've also lost both to St. Anthony and Altamont. So you
Exactly.
would assume they would be involved in something and they would both have a win against them. So yeah.
Yeah. But Altamont, the thing that struck me about Altamont is that like there there's some kids there that are talented athletes. Um, and in a lot of other programs would have been like 2 or 3 year varsity starters, but just
Yeah.
the way things worked out with them, they're inexperienced. They're still,
Well, right. And John said something about that to
yeah.
me. I think it was last year. He said, "Hey, I got a JV team that there's kids to be starting a lot of
Oh
places."
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, they had, in particular, Caden Miller, he's a man child, he's a grown man out there on the floor. He had 8 points and like 15 rebounds in that game. I mean, he had he had fully half of Altamont's rebounds in that basketball game, and he was a player. He played on the varsity last year, but like I mean, there were so many people on that team that you just didn't see,
Right.
and I think that another thing that came out of that game Friday night was that Cade Melville, who is a sophomore, got the start because Elam is out and will be
Yeah.
out for another week or two. Um, and showed you some things, hit some 3 pointers, gained some confidence after turning it over a lot in the first half. He's a really good pitcher, also. Um, it's a name you better get used to hearing out of Altamont because he's got a good future in both of those sports and probably other stuff too. I don't know what else he does, but still, like it was a fun game. Saint Anthony beat Saint Teresa yesterday by 40 points. Well, not much of a contest there. They've got Neoga this week, and they've got Mater Dei coming in on Friday. That should be a good one. They go to Neoga on Tuesday, and they've got Mater Dei coming in Friday. That's their week. So Neoga's struggling. That's St. Anthony should take care of its business there, I would think. But Mater Dei, that's you just kind of get conditioned to think that you play Mater Dei in something, it's going to be a pretty good battle. I know
Yeah, you need to pack a lunch on those. That's just the way it is.
it is a home game at least though. So
Yeah, that's not a fun place to go play. I'm speaking from experience. So,
Mater Dei is about a 500 team right now, so the results haven't been fantastic, but I don't know who they're playing. It's hard for me to say what that
yeah,
really is. So,
yeah.
um, let's see. T-Town boys, they got a couple wins this week. They beat Monticello on Tuesday. They beat them by 13 points. Got off to a little bit of a slow start in that game, but Monticello couldn't score much in the second half of that game, and the Shoes were able to pull away. And then they went to Warrensburg Latham Saturday, and beat them by 15 points. So they've won 3 games straight. They've got a big week coming up. They got St. Joe Ogden coming in on Tuesday, and then Tuscola coming in on Saturday. Now, St. Joe Ogden, obviously not the same St. Joe Ogden team that it was last year, so you do have to keep that in mind.
Right. However, though, I think they're ranked like 12th or something in Aaron's last poll. Um, Good ball club, be a good game.
They're still 13-3.
T-Town's starting to get a little more contributions from a little more people. Starting to get a little more help offensively for Gaddis and Nieberge, which is good. And you start not trying to do so much. So that's very helpful.
I saw just in terms of other basketball teams out there in the area. See, in my little spreadsheets that I have here, I have Teutopolis, I have NTC, and I have Apollo, and then I have other. Okay, and so T-Town and Cumberland both fit into other for me. And the reason I bring that up is because I actually saw a picture of a friend of the show, Ken Crawford, handing a plaque Coach Radel over there at Cumberland because they were recently recognized by IBCA for having gathered 1,000 wins as a program, as a consolidated program, and so Ken was apparently on hand Friday night for Cumberland's win over Tri-County to make that presentation. So that was just a little news from the area. Good for Cumberland. It's
And I would assume friend of the show, Ken Crawford, will be very visible Saturday
Oh,
when they
yeah.
recognize, because he'll have 3 teams recognized for
Mhm.
Final Four appearances. Obviously 86, I think it was 2000, 2007 were
Mhm.
his Final Fours, or did he have one in there, one more in there I missed?
Well, I think
I
if
think
you
that's it. Yeah, because in the fourth one would be Chet's from last year.
right, yep.
So yeah,
The week was kind of mixed for the T-Town girls. They played Mattoon Thursday and beat a really good Mattoon team by 24 points.
yeah,
So T-Town and Effingham in recent days have really handed it to Mattoon, a Mattoon team that hadn't lost very much up to that point.
right.
Um, but then they went to the same Breeze Central shootout that Altamont was at and played Petersburg Porta. And Porta they're like 18-1 now. They're
Yeah,
from all accounts a special team. And that game just didn't go T-Town's way. They lost 45-23, and it wasn't really even that close because after 3 quarters, I believe it was 45-13.
yeah,
And there would have at that point there would have been a running clock, and
yeah.
T-Town outscored them 10-0 in the fourth quarter to tighten it up a little bit. But all that really tells me is that Porta must be awfully good because T-Town,
Right. And we don't know if T-Town was shorthanded at all. I haven't heard from
I,
anybody. I didn't see that score from Saturday. So,
all I
um,
saw was that Chloe Probst, who is their leading scorer, was their leading scorer in that game. She scored 12 out of their she scored 12 out
12
of
of their 23.
yeah, but by all accounts, again, that's a pretty special Porta team, and so
Yep.
I think it tells me more about how good they are than anything because the Lady Shoes have been playing really good basketball lately. They had a good showing at the Coles County tournament. I mean, you might look at that and say fifth place. Well, how good is that? But really, they lost. They lost one game there. They lost to Galesburg, and Galesburg is a quality 3A opponent, and it
Yeah.
took overtime for Galesburg to beat them. So
Yeah.
I'm not gonna hold that too much against them. They've got a couple of games this week. They go to Bethalto tomorrow night on Monday, and then they've got Flora coming in on Thursday. I don't know much about Bethalto. I know that like I said, St. Anthony just beat Flora by 25 points, but that's kind of where you're at with them. And then they got the Highland tournament the following week, which is obviously always
Toughest girls tournament in the state of Illinois.
absolutely. As far as the Apollo Conference goes, let's touch on the Effingham boys real quick. They had a busy week, but didn't get any wins out of it. They played Olney on Tuesday, got doubled up 52-26, and then they had the unenviable task of traveling to Mount Zion on Friday, and Mount Zion is 17-0. Okay, a very good 3A team. They defeated us Effingham 69-27. And then the one I was kind of watching was Robinson. They had Robinson on Saturday. And then Robinson is one of the teams that Effingham has beaten this year. They beat him at the Thanksgiving tournament, and Robinson must have played a lot better yesterday because they got the 57-40 win. So it was a tough week for Obi and the boys. But they get right back at it this week. They go to Newton Tuesday, which that'll be a tough one.
Yeah.
And then they go to
Good ball.
Taylorville. They go to Taylorville on Thursday, and
That's another one that's their other win.
yeah, that's their other win and a good chance for them to try to pick up another one. We'll have that one. We'll have that one on the air. We'll do that one on the radio. So hopefully
Um,
they'll be able to. Hopefully they'll be able.
you
To,
mentioned Mount Zion. I think they're one of 3 unbeaten teams still in the state.
is
2 or 3.
Centralia still undefeated or
It's
not?
Centralia, Mount Zion, and one of the Chicagoland teams.
Yeah, since Tuscola finally took a loss.
Walbunza Valley or something, maybe.
No idea.
I don't know. I could say that and you would say, yeah, you're right, because you don't know. So I
You
think that's who
probably
it was.
listen. You probably are right. Okay.
Oh, I don't know. I'm basing it on memory. So
Now, Effingham girls had a good week. They won a couple of games. Um, they played Newton on Tuesday and beat them 51-26. Now that's notable for a couple of reasons because like Newton's just having a pretty solid season, but also they played back in the first week of the year.
yeah, it
And
was a close game, wasn't it?
and it took Effingham, I guess it would have been the second week of the year, but it took Effingham kind of getting it together in the fourth quarter to win that game by 10 points. And this time they double them up,
Yeah.
which seems to be a trend with Jeff's girls because you look at how they pasted Mattoon in the championship game of that Coles County tournament not 2 weeks after,
Got to beat him.
getting beat by him. And then they play Mount Zion on Saturday. They played them yesterday. And beat them 43-33. I watched a little bit of that on NFHS. I didn't sit and watch the entire thing, but kind of a low scoring game it seems like. But Mount Zion is a solid team with a standout player, and
Yeah.
anytime you can hold a team with an excellent player like Denver Anderson to 33 points, well, you've done something, right? And that's just a big conference win for Effingham because with a couple of conference losses and Taylorville doing what it's doing, you have to continue to win those league games
Right.
to make this game that you're playing with Taylorville this week that much more important.
And that's here at Effingham, correct?
It is Tuesday night. Listen to that one on the radio, by the way.
All right.
We're gonna have that one. Taylorville's 5-0 in league play. Mattoon's 3-1. Effingham's 3-2. Their losses are to Mattoon and Taylorville.
Right.
So that this is a chance for Effingham to I mean, if they want to win the conference,
Yeah. They
they
need to
won't
get
have
a
any
win there
chance.
and then hope somebody else knocks off Taylorville.
Yep, they gotta have this one. So it's a big game for them. But I think the important thing is that they're 16-3. They're playing and they're clearly improving just looking at what they're doing. So Jeff, I saw he made the comment that they were a little more patient, a little more under control in one of their recent games. And that was the thing that I kind of noticed in the times I have seen them this year is that sometimes kids would sort of, in an effort to make things happen,
They get a
just,
little frantic.
yeah, speed things up a little too much. And they're good enough and they've got enough weapons. Like nobody has to do it all. So you don't need to just like drive it into the paint and not have any idea not have any idea what comes next. Like you don't have to make things happen by yourself. You've got scorers all over the floor that can be a part of it. And so I think if they can continue that trend and play smart and play under control and play together, they're going to win a bunch more games before this is all said and done. So
Yeah. No, and
looking
that's
forward to that game.
you look at Jeff's team, generally they get better as the season goes on. That's kind of his credo, and that's what you want to have happen.
Yep. So that's they've got it's a big week for Effingham because not only does Taylorville come in on Tuesday, but they go to Paris on Thursday. Paris is still a really good team. They've lost a few more games this year
Yeah.
than they did last year, but the fact of the matter is that it's still a tough customer. 13-7 on the year, and you got to go to their place. Taylorville just played them on Saturday and only beat them by 5 points. So um, it's not going to be that's not going to be an easy week for Effingham's girls, but it's a good measuring stick to see where they're at as the season sort of starts that stretch drive.
Two
Uh,
things are happening now, Whitey. We're getting into the stretch drive, and you got to start listening for Greg Sapp to use that 4-letter word in the morning.
which I'm not sure which one you mean.
Snow.
Snow. Okay. Yeah. So you're telling me there's some coming in this week, huh?
Yeah, but everything I'm seeing from my guy I follow, it's kind of staying north of us for the most part. Now they're talking significant, but the Galesburg, the Peoria, I think that north of I-55 area up through Chicago is kind of where it's supposed to get interesting. But over the weekend, Friday, maybe into Saturday, another one potentially on the horizon. So I don't know.
Well, I hope I got, as long as it doesn't affect a trip to Taylorville on Thursday. That's the big one for me.
No, I think you'll be okay.
That's the furthest we have to go all year, I think, and at least until postseason stuff rolls
Yeah,
out.
till postseason.
Yeah, so would prefer not to have to drive on snow on a Thursday night, but it is what it is. Yeah, well, I mean, you already obviously hit on the St. Anthony boys, but that's nice feather in their cap, and they're a team that's certainly capable of doing some special things. And
Oh, yeah. No,
you know,
we can have, as our very first guest so eloquently said, teams around here make late postseason runs, which is great, especially for the media. You get to cover things, and I think that will continue.
mhm.
That trend will continue.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, and we still at some point need to devote some time in the show to starting to look at, where the assignments are at for these teams. But I mean, you look, I mean, you got some NTC boys teams that could potentially, depending on where they end up and who they play against, could make some runs. St. Anthony's obviously one of those. St. Elmo, Brownstown having a really nice year. If they get in the right spot, they could be looking at
Sure.
making some noise.
Altamont the same way.
Altamont same way, and Diedrich for that matter. I
Yeah.
mean, Diedrich's I still think that you look at Dietrich's kind of three-headed monster at the top of their scoring. If they get all those guys going at the right time and playing well together, there's a lot of potential there to make some noise. And the girls, we talked about Altamont. The Altamont girls are poised to make a deep run, but listen, Brownstown's 17-3 right now. St. Anthony's obviously very good. Neoga is I've seen Yoga play some, and they are certainly capable of beating some pretty good teams when they are hitting on all cylinders. And so and Diederik is a pretty solid team too. So there's a lot there. There's always a
Yeah.
lot there.
Unfortunately, you have to run into each other so
Mhm.
often in the postseason
Yeah,
around here.
yeah.
But we'll see what happens.
But I think that's pretty
Whitey,
much.
we may be getting completely away from basketball next week.
Why is that?
Well,
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know why.
we may have a guest until we get all
Yep,
the details ironed out, but we may have a guest who played basketball.
sure. And pretty well, honestly,
Yeah, yes, he was a very good player. So we're trying to see if we can work that out. We got a conflict with a birthday party, so it wouldn't be our usual taping, but we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, that's one of those. We'll try to do what we can to make it all work out.
Yeah,
But
we can make accommodations.
we'll talk a little more off the air, but we will not
That's a teaser I had to throw out there.
we will not dwell on college basketball, unless we want to talk about.
Oh, we
We
want to talk about Indiana beating Ohio State. You don't want to talk about Indiana.
No, I want to talk about Nebraska beating Indiana. That's what I want to talk about.
Was that earlier in the week?
It was earlier
I
in
may
the
have
week.
slept. I may have slept through that one.
Well, it's weird though to watch
That
that
one
game.
wasn't close.
No, it wasn't. But it's weird to watch a Nebraska men's basketball game and be like, they're just good. Like,
Yeah,
that's the thing is that
they can shoot it.
as much as I hate to give Indiana any sort of cover, Nebraska is just good and a good guard oriented team, and I think that might be kind of a weakness for Indiana, at times possibly. And
You think maybe in the last 3 years, but yeah.
um,
Um, I watched the Ohio State game, and it was just kind of hard to watch. Is it the Battle kid who transferred from Minnesota in the portal, who was their leading scorer, and now he's on Ohio State, and he's like their leading scorer. So
yeah, and I did, of course, I was busy Friday night, so I didn't get to watch Illinois Purdue, but that
yeah,
one.
it was
I don't think that one was even as close as the final score because Illinois just
well,
put on a good run at the end.
yeah, it was a good ball game. They worked their way back into it, had a chance. Big turnover late hurt them. I mean, they had the ball and decided to turn it over, and they've got a lot of tools. They really do. I haven't heard the Gary. Is it Guerrier? He kind of got banged up in the game. Heard it fell on his shooting hand. He'd had a good ball game. I don't know. I hope he's not injured.
Yeah, because the whole story with him was that he had a hand that was bugging him at the beginning of the year, and once he finally got
Well,
his feeling well, then he
yeah,
was shooting the threes lights out. And now
yeah.
got that going on again. That's
He
no
fell
good.
on it, and I just
Yeah, I
the one
mean,
thing about Illinois, they need to remind Coleman Hawkins that he's not wearing a striped shirt.
Coleman Hawkins has played pretty well this year so far. I still want to. The jury needs to stay out until more Big Ten games have been played. But
Sure,
I don't
but
know.
I mean,
I've never been as enamored with him as other folks have. But I don't
well,
know.
he knocked the kid down shooting a three. I mean, he ran into him, and then he puts a lot of energy into whining, which is a pet peeve of mine. But yeah, I mean, he's got a really nice skill set. I just like to see him keep
Yeah.
that energy going the other direction instead of whining every call because it's just bad optics.
Well, and that's the talk with him has always been that, like, the build and like you said, the skill set. Like there's a professional player in there. It just needs to be done in the proper way. So
Yep.
anyway, that's enough of that. I'm talking about it, and like I said, I didn't get a chance to watch that Purdue game, but had higher
Well,
hopes for it than. Although I didn't have
I
as
will see you.
feeling
I'll
about
see you
it.
Saturday at Jake's Griffin Gym. Then
I I'll be there. It'll be the end of a busy week for us on the
you know
radio.
what? I'm going to tell you something. Wear a sweater. It may be chilly in there.
Oh my goodness, it's going to be hotter than hell in there.
They figured it out. I was under the impression they didn't have something set up right that night when it was real hot in there when they played Bloomington Central. Wasn't that Bloomington Central Catholic game? Yeah. Yeah. I guess they just had the system shut off. They didn't have the air on to kind of make sure the temperature didn't get up into the 80s.
I just I just think that the massive humanity that is going to be present there is
But
probably going to make
since
any
Coach
air control impossible.
since Coach Crawford is going to be present just for old time's sake, they may run that whole temp up.
Yeah.
Been
Man,
there, done that, buddy. I know how warm that gym can be.
yeah. There'll be a lot of people there, but it'll be fun. It's going to be
It
a
will
it's
be.
gonna be
I hope they play well, have a good ball game. Yeah, gonna be a lot of people there, a lot of ghosts in the building. When I was talking to Aaron Britton today, I said, I don't know if Tuscola knows what they're walking into. And Tuscola may very well come in and hang a W. They're a very good ball club.
yeah,
However, it's going to be a full-throated Teutopolis crowd.
absolutely. And then, listen, it's not gonna be too much longer before we have to start talking about the NTC boys tournament that's coming up. And so
Yep.
there's just a lot of fun stuff to get geared up for. And then pretty soon it's all going to be over. So enjoy
But
it.
you know what happens after that NTC boys tournament?
What happens?
The Cross Creek game.
Yep.
And that's at St. Anthony this year, and that'll be a dandy.
It will be. It's going to be, I mean, you have to look forward to it under any circumstances, but I think this is going to be a good one.
Oh yeah.
That'll
Probably the most fun game. And I've been on both benches. There's nothing like it. The hair stands up on the back of your neck. It's a good one.
and the kids get into it. That's always the fun.
It's price of admission to watch the students.
Yeah, I mean, I had more than once in my newspaper days gotten more caught up in watching the kids go back and forth with each other than seeing what's happening out on the floor. So usually in good fun. There's been a couple of times where the line's gotten towed, but
yeah, but their wittiness, they show their wittiness.
they do. That's for sure. All right, I think we're good.
We're good.
You probably got supper to eat.
I do. My family's over there wolfing down something that smells delicious.
Yeah, well, you better get to it. We'll talk sometime next week. We'll, just play it by ear. We'll get something out there for you. And if no matter how that works out, there'll be plenty of basketball to talk about. There always is. So, all right, Mike, we will talk to you next week.
See you, Whitey.
See ya.